Another notification pops up. Another subscriber. But inside, everything's falling apart. What I'm about to share? It's not easy, but I can't keep pretending anymore. The notification bell chimed on my laptop, signaling another viewer had subscribed. "Thanks, guys," I said to the camera, forcing a smile. "Your support keeps us going." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It was getting harder to maintain the facade of a successful lifestyle vlogger when my personal life was crumbling. Okay, let's get into it. This is hard to talk about, but I need to get it off my chest. My name is Josh, and 3 months ago, I thought I had it all. I was 25, had a solid career at my parents' logistics company, and I had just married Emma, the woman I adored. She was 24, vivacious, intelligent, everything I thought I wanted. We met at a charity gala. She was volunteering, and I was there because my parents dragged me along. She cut through the polite chatter like a sunbeam, her laughter infectious. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but Emma was like a force of nature. She knew what she wanted, and she made it clear she wanted me. She claimed I was different, that I treated women with respect, not as objects. I tried my damnedest to live up to that. From flowers on her doorstep for no reason to planning surprise getaways to the coast, I poured my heart into making her happy. I was utterly, irrevocably in love. My parents, David and Linda, always supported us. David built the logistics business from the ground up. Linda managed the finances, keeping everything tight. They were a formidable team, and they instilled in me a strong work ethic and a sense of responsibility. They even let Emma and me live in one of their properties rent-free, so we could save for our future. Emma seemed grateful, but I now realized she saw it as her due. Our wedding was intimate, a gathering of close friends and family at a vineyard overlooking the valley. Emma was radiant in her white gown, her eyes sparkling with joy. I felt like the luckiest man alive as we exchanged vows. Then, we were off to St. Lucia, our honeymoon destination, an island paradise of volcanic peaks, lush rainforests, and turquoise waters. I had booked an all-inclusive package, the works. A luxurious resort, guided tours, a rental car, everything designed to create unforgettable memories. The first week was idyllic. We hiked through the rainforest, swam in hidden waterfalls, and dined on fresh seafood under the stars. Emma was her usual effervescent self, showering me with affection, constantly whispering how blessed she felt to have me. We took selfies on the beach, kayaked through mangrove forests, and danced to reggae music at beachside bars. I believed we were crafting the kind of storybook romance we'd recount for decades. But now, looking back, I see the cracks, the subtle inconsistencies that I was too blinded by love to notice. There were times when she'd mysteriously vanish, claiming she was browsing the shops, or needed some time alone to find her inner peace. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her implicitly. Then there was Carlos, our tour guide, a charismatic local with a disarming smile and an uncanny knowledge of the island. He was always around, seemingly eager to cater to our every whim. One afternoon, I stayed back at the resort to confirm reservations for a snorkeling trip. Emma, ever the explorer, said she wanted to visit the Castries market, a bustling hub of local crafts and spices. She kissed me goodbye and skipped off with a carefree wave. She returned hours later, flushed and overly animated. When I asked about her purchases, she gushed about the vibrant atmosphere and exotic goods, but presented nothing. I thought it was a little odd, but dismissed it. Maybe she just enjoyed the experience more than the acquisitions. After 2 weeks of supposed bliss, we returned home. I felt like I was floating, convinced that we had laid the foundation for a lifetime of happiness. I was so wrong, so very wrong. A week after our return, I decided to compile a slideshow of our honeymoon photos and videos as a surprise for Emma. I connected my laptop to the TV, plugged in the GoPro, and started sorting through the files. We are a tech-loving generation, so it's normal to use GoPro to record our daily activities. I had mounted the GoPro in the rental car to capture the scenic drives and any spontaneous moments between us. It wasn't an unusual practice. I often used it on trips to document the landscape and capture candid moments. I skimmed through the initial footage, expecting to see sweeping views of the Pitons, the iconic volcanic peaks, and playful banter between Emma and me. Then, I clicked on a file with a timestamp from the afternoon I had stayed at the resort, while Emma supposedly explored the market. A knot tightened in my stomach. I pressed play. Instead of the picturesque scenery, the GoPro had captured something sickening. Emma was in the back seat, locked in a passionate embrace with Carlos. They weren't talking. They weren't admiring the view. They were engaged in an act of raw intimacy, a betrayal that ripped through me like a shard of glass. My breath hitched. My hands trembled as I tried to process what I was seeing. Disbelief warred with a sickening realization. I frantically scrolled through the other files, finding more videos, each a replay of the same sordid scenario. Emma and Carlos in the car during those stolen moments when she claimed to be running errands or soaking up the local culture. My mind reeled, revisiting every interaction, every seemingly innocent gesture. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together, revealing a pattern of deception that was both calculated and cruel. Rage surged through me, blinding and all-consuming. This wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. It was a deliberate act, premeditated and executed during what was supposed to be the most sacred time in our marriage. She had planned it, orchestrated it, sneaking off whenever she thought I wouldn't notice. I sat there, numb with shock, for what felt like an eternity, replaying the videos over and over. I couldn't reconcile the woman I loved with the woman I saw on that screen. The woman who had sworn to cherish and honor me had instead chosen to desecrate our vows in the most humiliating way imaginable. That night, I couldn't bring myself to confront her. She lay asleep in our bed, her face serene, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I spent the night on the couch, wrestling with my emotions, trying to formulate a plan. What Emma didn't realize, and what ultimately became my shield, was her ignorance of our financial structure. She believed the house, the car, even the credit card she nonchalantly swiped were assets we shared, symbols of our burgeoning life together. She had no idea that they were all owned by the family. The house was under David and Linda's name, part of their extensive real estate holdings. The car was registered to the logistics company. The credit card was linked to accounts under my father's control. Emma thought she was marrying into wealth and security, but I had strategically kept my personal assets separate. The only money solely under my name was the $20,000 I had meticulously saved from freelancing during college, a nest egg I never flaunted. I knew true power lay not in ostentatious displays of wealth, but in securing my own future, in shielding myself from unforeseen circumstances. She was playing a game, but the board, the pieces, the rules, everything was set by my family. I realized I needed to tread carefully. Confronting her in a blind rage would be cathartic, but it wouldn't protect me. I had to gather my resources, strategize, and prepare for the inevitable fallout. The first thing I did was back up the videos. I copied them onto multiple hard drives and stored them in secure locations. The last thing I needed was for Emma to somehow delete the evidence, to rewrite the narrative to suit her needs. The next day, I reached out to Mr. Thompson, a seasoned lawyer my father trusted implicitly. I hesitated to involve my parents, unwilling to burden them with my marital woes, but I knew I needed professional guidance. Mr. Thompson was a bulldog in the courtroom, known for his sharp intellect and unwavering commitment to his clients. I laid out the entire story, presenting the evidence, detailing Emma's deception. He listened intently, his expression grim. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. "She doesn't have a leg to stand on," he declared. He explained that because the significant assets, the house, the car, the credit cards, were tied to David and Linda and the family business, Emma had no legal claim to them. If she tried to demand half of our assets in a divorce, she would be in for a rude awakening. His words offered a measure of comfort, but they didn't quell the turmoil within me. I still had to face Emma. I needed to hear her explanation, however hollow it might be, to understand the depths of her betrayal. That night, I played the role of the unsuspecting husband. I sat with her on the couch, feigning normalcy, and casually broached the subject of our honeymoon. "Hey, what was your favorite part of the trip?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. She beamed, oblivious to the impending storm. "Oh, all of it. The beaches were stunning. The food was amazing." I nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm glad you think so," I said, carefully controlling my tone. "You seemed really happy out there." She flashed an even wider grin. "Of course I was. How could I not be with everything you did for me?" Then, as if it were an afterthought, she added, "Oh, and Carlos, he was so nice, wasn't he?" My jaw clenched, but I maintained a veneer of casualness. "Yeah, he seemed really helpful," I said, reaching for my phone. "Speaking of, I found some videos from the trip. Thought you'd want to relive the memories. Of course, she said, her smile unwavering, completely unaware of the trap I was setting. I mirrored my phone screen onto the TV, preparing to expose her deceit in high-definition glory. If she was going to lie, she might as well witness her own transgression in crystal-clear clarity. Her smile vanished the instant the video started playing. Her face drained of color as she stared at the screen, her eyes widening in horror. She looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. "Go ahead, Emma," I said, leaning back, my voice laced with a mixture of anger and amusement. "Explain this. I'll wait." She stammered, her voice trembling. I don't know what that is. This isn't what it looks like." I raised an eyebrow, allowing a smirk to creep across my face. "Oh, so it's not you getting cozy with Carlos in the back seat of the rental car? Damn, my mistake. Maybe I need glasses." "Listen, I can explain." I cut her off, my voice hardening. "Explain? Sure. I'd love to hear how banging Carlos on our honeymoon was just a big misunderstanding. Go ahead. I'm all ears." She floundered for words, resorting to the same tired excuses. "It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking. It didn't mean anything." I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Didn't mean anything? Well, good news, Emma. It means even less to me. Save your breath. We're done." I watched her crumble, her carefully constructed facade shattering before my eyes. I knew this was just the beginning. If she thought she could talk her way out of this, she was about to learn a painful lesson about who she was dealing with. That night marked the end of our marriage, though the legal battle was just beginning. Emma initially clung to denial, staring at the pause screen on the TV as if willing the incriminating footage to disappear. But the truth was undeniable. The raw, unadulterated evidence stared back at her, a testament to her infidelity. When she finally spoke, her voice was a pathetic plea. "Josh, please, it's not what it looks like," she begged. I refused to indulge her charade. "Emma, don't insult my intelligence. It's exactly what it looks like. There's no explaining away what you were doing in that car during our honeymoon." Then came the flood of excuses. A mistake, a one-time lapse, too much alcohol, Carlos's irresistible charm. She hurled them at me like desperate projectiles, hoping one would find its mark. I remained unmoved. "Emma, there's more than one video. This wasn't a momentary slip-up. It was a pattern. You made a conscious choice, over and over again." Her tears flowed freely, a performance designed to elicit sympathy. She sobbed, claiming she never intended to hurt me, that she still loved me, that it was meaningless. But I couldn't bear to look at her. The sight of her filled me with a profound sense of disgust. I stood up, creating distance between us. "You didn't respect what I gave you, Emma. You didn't value our marriage. If you had, you wouldn't have done this. I want a divorce." Her tears evaporated as quickly as they appeared. "You can't just discard me like this," she spat, her voice laced with indignation. "I sacrificed everything to be with you. You owe me." I stared at her, aghast at her audacity. "Owe you? Everything we have isn't written in my name. The house, the car, the credit cards, they're all in David and Linda's name. The only thing in my name is my savings account. And guess what? You're not getting a single penny of it." Her face contorted with rage. "You've been lying to me this whole time. You said we were building a life together, and now you're telling me none of it is actually ours." I allowed a smirk to play on my lips. "Oh, it's mine, Emma. I built it, I earned it, but it's all under David and Linda's name to protect it from situations like this. Funny how that worked out, huh? I thought we were building something real together too, but clearly you had other priorities, like the back seat with Carlos." She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her, but I was certain I could hear the distinct sound of shattering glass coming from the bedroom shortly after. I remained where I was for a long time, trying to absorb the shock of her betrayal. I had married this woman, entrusted her with my heart, my future, and she had desecrated that trust with such callous disregard. The following morning, I woke up to an empty house. Emma had left before dawn, likely to avoid facing the consequences of her actions. I didn't care where she went. I had more pressing matters to address. First, I contacted Mr. Thompson. The videos were my ace in the hole, but I needed to ensure I hadn't overlooked any legal loopholes that could be exploited later. He reiterated that because everything was under David and Linda's name, Emma had no legitimate claim to our shared assets. It was a relief, but I felt compelled to take further precautions. Over the next few days, I meticulously backed up the videos to multiple secure servers and printed hard copies of our financial records. I needed to be prepared for any eventuality, any manipulative tactic Emma might employ. Meanwhile, Emma continued to maintain a facade of normalcy. She'd return home late, barely utter a word, and then retreat to the bedroom. It was as if she expected me to capitulate, to forgive her transgressions, but there was no possibility of forgiveness. Days turned into weeks, and a tense silence settled over the house. Emma started to become more aggressive, leaving a trail of broken things in the wake of our arguments and turning nasty, almost venomous in her accusations. I tried to avoid escalating things, but eventually I started snapping back. One afternoon, Emma attempted a reconciliation, assuming she could charm her way back into my good graces. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her eyes red and swollen, as if she had been crying for days. "Josh, can we please talk about this?" she asked, her voice pleading. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I want a divorce." She flinched, as if I had physically struck her. "You can't just give up on us like this. We're married. We made vows." I couldn't help but scoff. "Vows? Are you serious right now? You shattered those vows the moment you decided to sleep with someone else. And not just someone else, Carlos, on our honeymoon, no less." Her tears returned, but I refused to offer her any sympathy. "Josh, please, it was a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was scared. I thought you didn't love me anymore." That last statement stung. "You thought I didn't love you? Emma, I planned that entire honeymoon to make you happy. I trusted you implicitly, and this is how you repay me?" She had no response. Instead, she changed her approach, her voice becoming hard and steely. "Fine. If that's how you feel, then I'll fight you in court. I deserve half of everything." That was the final straw. I slammed my fist on the table, causing her to jump. "You won't get a damn thing, Emma. The house? Not yours. The car? Not yours. Even the credit card you've been treating as your personal allowance? That's not yours either. It's all under David and Linda's name, meticulously protected so that people like you can't exploit it." She stared at me, her mouth agape, her eyes wide with shock. "You're bluffing," she whispered weakly. "I'm not. You think you're entitled to something, but you're not. You don't own a single thing here, Emma, and after what you've done, you'll be lucky to walk away with the clothes on your back." After that confrontation, the atmosphere in the house became even more toxic. Emma bombarded me with endless texts while I was at work, alternating between begging for forgiveness and threatening to destroy me. One message read, "If you think you can toss me aside like garbage, you're mistaken. I'll make sure everyone knows the kind of person you are." I forwarded every message to Mr. Thompson, who assured me they would be invaluable if she attempted to file a frivolous claim in court. I refused to respond to her texts, and I did my best to avoid her entirely. Then, one afternoon, she appeared at my office uninvited. I was in a meeting with my father, David, and a few of the senior managers when Brenda, the receptionist, called to let me know she was there. "She's making a scene," Brenda said nervously. I excused myself and stepped out into the lobby. Emma was standing there, yelling at Brenda and demanding to see me. "You think you can lock me out of my house?" she screamed when she saw me. I struggled to maintain my composure. "It's not your house, Emma. Now, leave before I call security." She glared at me, her face flushed with rage. "You'll regret this, Josh. You'll regret everything." But I didn't regret a thing. If anything, I felt relieved. I was finally asserting control over a situation that should never have happened in the first place. That evening, I sat down with my parents, David and Linda, and recounted everything. My father, David, who is usually a calm and collected man, was visibly furious. "She thought she could take advantage of us? Not on my watch," he declared. My mother, Linda, on the other hand, was devastated. "You deserve so much better than this, Josh," she said, embracing me tightly. I was grateful for their unwavering support. With my parents on my side, a skilled legal team, and a solid plan, I felt confident that I could weather this storm. Emma believed she could manipulate me into granting her demands, but she was about to discover that I was far from the naive pushover she imagined. Following the explosive incident at my office, the situation with Emma spiraled further downhill. She abandoned any pretense of remorse, embracing a persona of anger and entitlement. It was as if she no longer cared about maintaining appearances. I suspect she thought she could bully me into submission, but her attempts were futile. The ensuing weeks were a blur of legal preparations. Mr. Thompson became my guiding light, leading me through the intricacies of the divorce process and meticulously organizing all the relevant evidence. The incriminating videos, the transparent financial records, and even the incessant barrage of threatening text messages she had sent me. Everything was carefully compiled into an airtight case. Concurrently, Emma was actively attempting to turn my social circle against me. She contacted mutual friends, fabricating stories of abuse and oppression. She concocted a narrative of a man who blindsided her and left her with nothing, knowing full well that it wasn't true. Initially, a few people reached out, curious to hear my side of the story. However, once I presented the truth, they quickly distanced themselves from Emma. Several friends admitted that they had overheard Emma boasting about the freedom she felt with Carlos while we were on the honeymoon. In retrospect, it was clear what she meant, but at the time, no one had connected the dots. One friend in particular, Sarah, sent me a series of screenshots of messages Emma had sent her. In the messages, Emma ranted about how unfair it was that I had been dishonest about our finances. She even said that she deserved compensation for everything she had sacrificed to be with me. Roughly a month into the ordeal, Emma officially filed for divorce. Her lawyer submitted a list of demands that was so ludicrous that I couldn't help but laugh when I read it. She wanted half the value of the house, half of all of our shared assets, and alimony, claiming that I had financially controlled her. I forwarded the list to Mr. Thompson, who simply replied with one word: laughable. During our initial court appearance, Emma had the audacity to appear smug. She was dressed to impress, as if she were about to win. I, on the other hand, was composed. Mr. Thompson had prepared me meticulously, and I knew precisely how the proceedings would unfold. Judge Thompson requested that Emma's attorney explain their demands. He spoke at length about the emotional abuse Emma had endured and how I had hidden assets to prevent her from obtaining her rightful share. Then, it was our turn. Mr. Thompson presented our case with precision, the financial records illustrating that the house, the car, and the credit cards were not legally mine, but belonged to David and Linda and the family business. The videos from the honeymoon showcasing her infidelity in excruciating detail, and the chain of text messages where she alternated between threats and pathetic pleas. My father's testimony was the killing blow. Calm and composed, he meticulously explained the details of our assets. The house Emma refers to as part of my real estate portfolio, he explained. The car she drives is owned by our family business. My son plays a vital role in our company, overseeing crucial operations and contributing to its growth. However, all assets, personal and business, remain under my ownership as part of a long-term financial strategy. He paused for a moment, his voice steady and firm. While my son is deeply involved in running the business, he does not formally own any significant assets at this stage. My wife and I have ensured that he is supported as he builds his future. Everything that Emma claims is theirs, from the house to the car to the credit cards, is actually in my name or tied directly to the business. My father's words were clear, authoritative, and left no room for argument. Emma's entire narrative crumbled right there in the courtroom. Her attorney looked as if he wished he could disappear. Emma, on the other hand, looked absolutely livid. I could feel her piercing glare from across the room, but I didn't care. After the hearing, Emma confronted me in the hallway. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed. "But this isn't over. You've ruined my life, Josh. I'll make you pay for this." I stared at her, completely unfazed. "You ruined your own life, Emma. And if you think you can scare me, you're wrong. This is over." I turned and walked away, leaving her there seething with anger. Back at home, I experienced a wave of relief for the first time in what felt like months. My parents, David and Linda, were waiting for me, and my mother, Linda, immediately enveloped me in a tight embrace. "You did the right thing," she said. "We are so proud of you for standing your ground." That night, I sat down with my parents, David and Linda, and we discussed the next steps. My father, David, even made some modifications to the business structure to ensure that no one, not Emma or anyone else, could ever attempt to claim what was not theirs. In the days that followed, Emma's behavior became increasingly desperate. She started contacting people she hadn't spoken to in years, attempting to sway them to her side. She even showed up at Mark and Jennifer's house one evening, pounding on the door and demanding to be let in. The police were called, and she was escorted off the property. At that point, it was evident that she was not going to give up without a fight, but I was no longer concerned. I had the evidence, the backing of my family, and the moral high ground. The second court date felt like the grand finale. By that point, Emma's story had completely fallen apart. She had spent weeks attempting to portray herself as the victim to friends, family, and even in court documents, but her narrative crumbled in the face of our compelling evidence. Her lawyer began by rehashing the same arguments from the first hearing, claiming emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and her alleged right to half of our marital assets. It was the same recycled nonsense, but it seemed even weaker this time around. When it was Mr. Thompson's turn, he held nothing back. He dissected every point of her claim, dismantling it with cold, hard facts. He presented the financial records, the videos from our honeymoon, and the text messages Emma sent in the weeks following our separation. When the judge announced his decision, it was both swift and decisive. Emma's claims were flatly denied. She was not entitled to any portion of the house, the car, or the family business. The judge also declined to award her alimony, citing her infidelity as the primary reason for the dissolution of the marriage. Listening to the judge read the ruling, I was overwhelmed with relief. It was finally over, or so I thought. As news of the verdict spread, friends and family members who had previously been unsure about whom to support began reaching out to me, apologizing for believing Emma's lies. Jennifer and Mark, in particular, were very apologetic. Jennifer and Mark told me that they had confronted Emma. Apparently, they had heard rumors about the videos, and when they actually saw the evidence, they were shocked. Jennifer reached out to me and said, "Josh, I don't know what to say. We really thought she was the victim of this situation. I'm so sorry." I appreciated their sympathy, but it didn't undo the damage Emma had tried to do. Still, it felt good to know that the truth was finally revealed. Emma, on the other hand, started to publicly lash out. She kept trying to save face by repeating her fabrications. She said that I had manipulated the court system and that I was a terrible husband, but nobody believed her. A couple we had met on our honeymoon even came forward with their own videos. They had witnessed Emma flirting with Carlos and had recorded some of her behavior, thinking it was strange at the time. When they heard about the divorce, they immediately contacted me and shared the videos with me. This led to Carlos being fired from his agency. Apparently, I wasn't the only person who had complained about him. Losing his job was the least he deserved, but it felt like a small win. A few months later, Emma made one final attempt to weasel her way back into my life. She waited for me in my office one day after I'd stayed late. As I left the office, Emma fell into step beside me. "Josh," she said, tears streaming down her face, "I have nowhere else to go." I didn't let her finish. "You made your choices," I said. "Now, live with them." She continued following me until I reached my car. She tried to grab my hand, but I jerked away from her. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just scared. Please, can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about, Emma. Just go away and leave me alone." I pulled out my cell phone and threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. Then, she finally backed off. Watching her walk away, I didn't feel any guilt. She had brought this on herself. At this point, I was ready to move on. The legal problems were over, and I could finally focus on moving on with my life. My parents suggested that I move back home, but I didn't want to. I needed to focus on moving ahead. I decided to make a vlog about it all and hoped that by telling my story, I could help others avoid a similar experience. Maybe I could reach others who were going through something like this and give them hope that they could overcome their problems. So, with some of my anxiety at bay, I sat down one day to make that first video. That's when I got a call from a private investigator. I hadn't hired one, so I was confused. "Mr. Reynolds, I have information about your ex-wife, Emma," the voice said. "It's regarding her relationship with Carlos and something else you should know." Intrigued and cautious, I met the investigator. He presented evidence that Emma and Carlos had been planning their affair for months before the honeymoon, communicating through burner phones and coded messages. But the real bombshell was that Emma had another affair years before me, with one of her high school teachers, Mr. Harrison. She even got pregnant with her high school history teacher and was forced to get an abortion at 18 years old. The investigator had uncovered emails, phone records, and even photos documenting the affair. Apparently, Emma had a history of seeking attention and validation through illicit relationships. The revelation shook me to my core. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about Emma's character, her capacity for deception, and the depth of her manipulation. I started to wonder if I ever really knew who she was. Armed with this new information, I decided to confront Emma one last time. I tracked her down to her new apartment, a small, cramped space that was a far cry from the luxurious home we had shared. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. "Josh, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. I held up a folder containing the evidence I had gathered from the investigator. "I know about Carlos," I said, "but that's not all, Emma. I know about Mr. Harrison." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. I laid out the evidence, the emails, the phone records, the photos. "You were having an affair with him for a long time, and you were even pregnant." Emma broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "It was a mistake," she cried. "I was young and foolish. He was a predator." I wasn't buying it. "This isn't about a mistake, Emma. It's about a pattern. It's about who you are. You seek validation in the wrong places. Please, Josh, don't tell anyone," she pleaded. "It will ruin my life." "You should have thought about that before you ruined mine," I said coldly. "I'm not going to tell anyone, but you need to get help. You need to address your demons." I left her standing there, a broken and defeated woman. I knew that she would likely never change, but at least I had confronted her with the truth. Moving forward, I focused on healing and rebuilding my life. I immersed myself in my work, spending long hours at the logistics company, implementing new strategies and expanding our operations. My parents were my rock, offering unconditional love and support. I started going to therapy to deal with the emotional trauma of the divorce and Emma's betrayal. My therapist helped me process my anger, grief, and disillusionment. I also reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I started dating again, but I was cautious, taking my time to get to know people and being open about my past. One day, I met Sarah, a woman who worked at a local animal shelter. She was kind, compassionate, and genuine. We bonded over our shared love of animals and our desire to make a positive impact on the world. As we got to know each other, I shared my story with her. She listened without judgment, offering words of encouragement and understanding. "You deserve to be happy, Josh," she said. "Don't let Emma's actions define you." Her words resonated with me. I realized that I had been holding on to the anger and resentment for too long. It was time to let go and move on. Sarah and I fell in love, and after a year of dating, I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and we began planning our wedding. This time, I knew I was making the right decision. Sarah was the woman I had been waiting for, someone who loved me for who I was and who shared my values and goals. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, surrounded by close friends and family. As I stood at the altar, looking into Sarah's eyes, I knew that I had finally found peace. Emma's actions had caused me immense pain, but they had also taught me valuable lessons about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of surrounding myself with genuine people. I had emerged from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and wiser, and now I was ready to embrace my new life with open arms. Just when I thought I had put the past behind me, another twist came along. Sarah got a phone call one day that turned our world upside down. It was from a woman claiming to be Emma's sister, Claire. Sarah never knew Emma had a sister, and she knew a lot about Emma since they were in the same friend circle, and Sarah was also in the same high school. She told Sarah that Emma had been hospitalized and was struggling with a long-term illness. She had gone into depression, had lost her apartment, and had spent the last few months in and out of hospitals. She wanted to reconcile with me before it was too late. Sarah was torn. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as another one of Emma's manipulative tricks. She felt that Emma had no right to come back into my life and cause further disruption after everything she had done. But deep down, she couldn't ignore the possibility that Emma was genuinely remorseful and that she was dying. She was a compassionate person, and she couldn't bear the thought of someone facing death without the chance to make amends. We talked for hours that night, weighing the pros and cons of contacting Emma. I was hesitant. She had caused me so much pain, and I wasn't sure if I could bring myself to forgive her. But Sarah, with her gentle heart, convinced me that it was the right thing to do. "Even if she's not sincere," she said, "at least you'll know you did everything you could. You don't want to live with regret." The next day, I reluctantly agreed to visit Emma. Sarah said she had to be there with me, a little nudge in the right direction to make sure I didn't do something rash. Claire had provided us with the address of the hospital where Emma was staying. As we drove there, my heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know what to expect. When we arrived at the hospital room, I hesitated outside the door, preparing myself for what was about to come. Sarah squeezed my hand and gave me a reassuring smile. Together we stepped inside. Emma was lying in bed, pale and frail. Her once vibrant eyes were now dull and lifeless. As soon as she saw me, tears welled up in her eyes. "Josh," she whispered, her voice weak, "thank you for coming. I came to find some closure for my sake and for Sarah. You're probably a terrible person and did a terrible thing to me, but she thinks I should bury the hatchet," I said, trying to hide my anger. "I'm so sorry, Josh," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I regret everything I did. I was lost and insecure, and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve it. You are absolutely right. My apologies." I got cut off mid-story. Here's the continuation of the Emerald Isle deception. I stared at Emma, searching for any sign of insincerity, but all I saw was genuine remorse. Sarah squeezed my hand again, a silent encouragement to listen. Emma continued, "After the divorce, my life spiraled out of control. I lost my job, my friends, everything. I realized that I had made a terrible mistake, but it was too late. I tried to reach out to you, but I knew I didn't deserve your forgiveness." She paused, coughing weakly. Claire, her supposed sister, was nowhere in sight, suspicious. "Then I got sick," Emma continued, her voice barely audible. "The doctors say it's a rare autoimmune disease. There's no cure. I don't have much time left. Claire contacted Sarah. She's the reason you're here. Do you even have a sister named Claire?" I asked, my voice laced with skepticism. Emma looked confused. "Claire? I don't have a sister, Claire. I thought you contacted me." My head swam. It was yet another layer of deception. Who had contacted Sarah and why? It was clearly a setup, but what was the motive? I turned to Sarah, bewildered. "Someone used her illness to get us here, but who and why?" Sarah, ever quick thinking, pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the hospital security. This feels wrong." As Sarah spoke to security, a figure emerged from the shadows of the room. It was Carlos, our former tour guide, and, apparently, Emma's accomplice in this elaborate scheme. "Carlos?" I exclaimed, my anger flaring. "What is going on?" Carlos smirked. "I see you took the bait. Emma and I have been planning this for a while. We figured guilt would be your weakness." "But why?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Carlos shrugged. "Money, of course. We knew you were doing well, Josh. We thought if we could get you to feel sorry for Emma, you'd be willing to help her out financially." Emma looked horrified. "Carlos, you said you wanted to see me happy. You said you loved me." "Love? Please, Emma. You were a means to an end. Besides, you were just a bit of fun on a honeymoon, then just got annoying and desperate," Carlos scoffed, his face contorted with disdain. Just then, hospital security arrived, alerted by Sarah's call. They quickly apprehended Carlos and took him into custody. As they led him away, he turned to me and sneered, "This isn't over, Reynolds. I'll find a way to get what I want." The security guards led Carlos out of the room, leaving Emma lying in bed, sobbing uncontrollably. We left Emma and waited for the police to arrive. When the police arrived, we told them everything, from the affair to now. The police took our statement and thanked us for calling them. When we got home, Sarah got an inspiration. "Josh, I'm going to check Claire's number. Maybe we can find out who it really is." Sarah quickly got to work, putting her computer skills to the test. She traced the phone number back to a prepaid cell phone purchased at a convenience store in a neighboring city. The store's security cameras revealed that the purchaser was David, my dad. My father has always been very caring to me and Linda and has helped my family business stay afloat. What reason does he have to set this up? I was speechless. I confronted my father, David, the next day. He denied any involvement at first, but when I presented him with the evidence, he broke down and confessed. "I did it for you, Josh," he said, his voice trembling. "I couldn't stand to see you hurting anymore. I knew that if Emma was truly remorseful, you'd be willing to forgive her. I thought it would bring you some peace." "Peace? Dad, you used my life for some elaborate plot. What are you going to do next? Ruin my marriage to Sarah?" I shouted at David. "I was afraid that you would reject that idea, so I asked Carlos and Emma to call Sarah when the time was right. And then I called when my business deal was done and left," David explained, crying. "What business deal are you talking about? What did you leave?" I yelled. My father went silent and took a deep breath. David explained to us he was doing this all for the business's sake. The company was near bankruptcy due to a deal with another company, which led David to give away the land in St. Lucia in order to keep our company afloat. Due to my past history with Emma, he was scared that I would decline such a terrible deal, and that would lead the business to go bankrupt. The plan he thought would guarantee me saying yes was setting a trap with Carlos and Emma. I was so angry that I left the house with Sarah and decided to deal with it at my own pace. After hours of discussion, we decided to let the police deal with David's crimes. When David was arrested, Linda, my mother, was speechless. She was worried about me, Sarah, and David when she heard the news. When she asked about everything, Sarah and I told Linda everything, including the hospital scam, and even how Carlos tried to do a money scam on me. After hearing everything, my mom felt regretful. I decided to give up on the company and start up my own logistic business. It was difficult, but with Sarah by my side, I was able to do it. Linda visited me one day and told me about the company being bankrupt and how I was supposed to inherit the company. Linda encouraged me to visit David one last time, who apologized with a sincere tone. Sarah forgave and accepted David's apology as well. It took time, but eventually, the dust settled. Emma was left to face the consequences of her actions, hopefully to get the help she desperately needed. Carlos was imprisoned. My father's actions had devastating consequences, but I eventually learned to forgive him, though our relationship was forever changed. I took some of my old worker from my old family business and created a new business. The whole ordeal strengthened my relationship with Sarah, proving that our love could withstand any challenge. I was finally free from the lies and deceptions of the past, ready to embrace a future filled with trust, honesty, and genuine love. And that, I suppose, is the end of my story. A story filled with betrayal, secrets, and unexpected twists. But ultimately, it's a story about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of finding true love and peace. Thanks for listening. I hope my experience can help someone going through a similar situation. Remember, the truth will always come to light, and it's never too late to start over and build a better future for yourself.